Alright, okay. A video on how I believe YouTube is breaking natural law, which is the proper real law, not legal mumbo jumbo. I'm talking real proper laws that are the law that is there in stone for us all to follow. I'm talking about that real law that God put there for everybody to follow. And YouTube, I believe, is breaking it. So actually, this video can serve as a notice to YouTube to correct their mistake right now. And because of course they surely watch every video that they put out there. I mean, you know, it'd be silly not to, wouldn't it? So anyway, I'll get straight into it. What YouTube have done is they've decided to deal directly with the man. That's what they've decided to do. Normally in between legal fictions, what usually happens actually is in the legal system, I mean, you'll be aware of this, in the legal system, if you want to set up an account with another business, right, you are going to need some kind of other legal information, some other legal document in order to set that account up. You're going to need like a passport, a driving license, maybe a bill or two from another corporate entity, you know, like an electric bill or a phone bill or something from somebody else, some other thing that's in the system, you know, so that, you know, the address, the name, and all the rest of that nonsense can get established with the new account that's being created with whatever entity you're making a new account with. Well, the reason why they want to do this, and the reason why you'll notice this, you'll hand over some, you know, like you'll send in a copy of something or like a bill or a couple of bills or something, and they'll take photocopies of that and then they'll give it back to you. Well, that whole process is the reason why that has to occur. The reason why a physical thing has to change hands is because the idea that's contained on that physical thing only has meaning in the setting, as you know, in the jurisdiction where that thing is. So when the legal system send me, for instance, a driving license, as soon as that I receive that thing, as soon as I take possession of it, I now have jurisdiction over that thing. They don't have any more jurisdiction over that thing, believe it or not. This is the reason why if you get pulled over by a cop, you hand over the driving license. Now they can write a ticket on that, and then they'll give you the driving license back. Now they have jurisdiction over the driving license. That's the thing they have jurisdiction over. That's the thing they're writing the ticket for. Same thing applies when you create an account. You've got to hand over some information. Okay, it's under your jurisdiction. It doesn't mean anything in their system while you have it in your possession, right? As soon as you hand possession over to them, that thing flip-flops back into their jurisdiction. And the meaning behind it also kind of comes back to life, if you like. The meaning behind it is now, it's now back in the system doing what it was designed to do. Okay, the jurisdiction has flipped on it and it is now in their jurisdiction. So now what they do is when they've got those things, from those things they create the next account, you know, that the account that you're wanting to set up with whatever business you're trying to set up an account with. Oh dear, Dan. So they have created a chain of title, and this all leads back to the birth certificate, because the birth certificate is that main idea that they still control. Okay, the birth certificate, the original birth certificate, is still in their filing cabinet somewhere. They never give you that thing. Otherwise, they would lose jurisdiction over it. They wouldn't have control over it anymore. It would be out of their control. Okay, whoever has possession has control. So, The other thing with the birth certificate, and I don't know whether people really think about this very much, but the reason why they set that birth certificate up right when you're born, yeah, I know it's in the name, the birth certificate, but the reason why that thing is set up when you are just a little baby is because you are incapable of setting up an account with them at that point. You are incapable of dealing really with anybody at that point, apart from probably your mother. You know, that's the only thing you deal with at that point. So, some other people set that thing up. They set that account up. Parents, doctors, nurses, administrative staff, they all set that account up. It's got nothing to do with you, apart from they happen to use the same name on there, and they happen to use the same date that you parted from your mother. They use that same date, the birth date, and we can call it the birth date. We just need to know how language works, and that's a video that I've done previously and for another day. But yeah, so this birth certificate is set up when you have no way of setting it up yourself. So there can be no dispute, no confusion about the fact that that birth certificate, that account, that name, whatever you want to call that thing, that fictional person is the system's fictional person. It is their account. It's got nothing to do with the living man, apart from the fact that we play along with that thing. So, the reason why that's important is because I can't come along and claim that thing now. How can I claim the birth certificate? How could I ever set that thing up when I was incapable of even feeding myself? You know? As you know, the craziness that you hear out there when you're listening to people talking about, you know, legal this and how to get out of the system and all the rest of this stuff and claiming the birth certificate and all this. And the mind just boggles that people don't think about this stuff, but logically. Anyway, so let's just quick recap. So the birth certificate is nothing to do with you, and so when a business, when you want to set up an account with a business, they go to great lengths to make sure that they use some legal information, some legal documents to create the new account that have already existed within their system. It doesn't matter where they went that you took possession of them, as long as they get possession back of those things, okay, set the account up, make the copies of those things so they know that they had possession of them, because they had to have possession of them to make a copy of them, right? And then, unless you were to send them copies, but you'll find that they don't want copy. They always want an original, well, I say a certified original copy. Okay, that's what they want, because they probably don't realize it, but they need to have possession of those things in order for the chain of evidence to work. Okay, for it to be out of the hands of the man. Anyway, what YouTube did, though, what YouTube did, what they've done is they've decided to forget all about having to get those documents from you to set up an account. So what they said is, we said, well, what probably the thinking behind it was, who the hell is going to want to send in you know, this evidence to set up a YouTube account? Nobody. Nobody's going to want to do that, are they? So probably in order to get YouTube off the ground, they said, well, we'll put a set of terms and agreement and we'll make it look legal. But when we get down to the actual nitty-gritty working of it, it really is not right under natural law. But if we can get enough people hooked on it, then maybe we can change it later. That's probably what they were thinking. So, and they do have two different types of accounts, okay? So I think they have a business account. I don't know what that involves and what kind of legal information has to be submitted in order to create that account. But For you and I that just have a regular old plain old Jane old, YouTube account, an individual YouTube account, that's not necessary. The only thing they want is a name, and I think just a birthday. I can't remember ever even having to put in a legal address. I don't think I had to put my address in there, but irrelevant either way, because those ideas are not owned by anybody. Okay, they don't mean really anything by themselves. It's the little bit of paper that they're written on is what that is where the meaning is contained on. That's why they have to have the physical piece of paper in order to create an account that has that proper chain of title. I say title, evidence. I think title's easier to say though. So all we have is 3 bits of complete fictional requirements. Anybody can own, I say anybody can own that. Nobody really owns the name, but anybody can use the name. Anybody can use the birthday. Anybody can use the legal address. It's not that words and numbers and symbols are not owned by anybody. Okay, it's the little piece of paper that it's written on that's the important thing. Okay, so you set the YouTube account up. So now you're going to say to me, well, there's terms and conditions on there, Dan. They can do what, because this is all boiling back down to the fact that YouTube are now in the business of removing videos that may have, I don't know, controversial topics in them. They're in the business of removing people from YouTube that break copyright rules, okay? And the problem with this is they don't have the right to do that unless they are dealing with a legal fiction. They don't have that right now. Let me explain why. So, I'm kind of losing my train of thought already here. But because they have now decided that they haven't established that they're dealing with another legal fiction, now they're dealing with the man. Okay? And when a man puts, okay, so when I look at YouTube, when I set my account up, what I looked at is I said, right, I get to put a video on, I upload a video, and in return for me spending my time making that video and uploading it, YouTube, when I've got an account, YouTube will take that video and they will play it in perpetuity, so I can watch the video anytime I want, or anybody else can watch the video. And that's what they were going to do. That was the common agreement that I saw when I entered into that. I just call it an agreement with YouTube. And I also believed, and in that agreement, that my video would be fairly used, would be fairly put out there, the same as everybody else that's on YouTube. I would have a similar, there would be a similar fairness to the airing of videos, okay? i.e., my videos wouldn't be, what I don't know what the correct word really is. I mean, it's not really censored, but shoved to the back of the shelf, if you like. I don't know what the correct word is, but they would see the light of day the same as everybody else's videos would see the light of day. I know there will be slight differences with, if a video's, very, very popular, then, obviously those videos will go on to see more views, and they will be highlighted more. But what I'm talking about is I'm talking about what I think's going on. I haven't got any, of course, you can't prove any of this, but there does seem to be some shady bits and bobs going on. Comments disappearing. Another thing that they shouldn't be doing. Because, you enter into that account, you say, well, I'm allowed to put comments on fairly, and as everybody else would be allowed to put comments on, and comments shouldn't be being removed at all, really. YouTube have given away that right when they decided to work with the man rather than another fictional entity, because they never will, and they never can have jurisdiction over the man. The man always will have default jurisdiction over any fiction out there. Anyway, I'm going to get a bit all over the place now. So we've got we've got people shouting at the computer right now saying, well, what about the terms and conditions? Well, terms and conditions only apply to other fictions, other legal fictions, in fact. So a set of terms and conditions on a page will only apply to other legal fictions. So it's irrelevant whether you click them or not. It's a bit, I couldn't think of a very good analogy, but it's a bit like, oh, I'm a guy, right? And if somebody said, well, I can only do a deal with you, but only if you promise not to flush a tampon down the toilet in the women's restroom. And I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to me because I'm a guy. Sure, I agree, you know, it doesn't apply to me. I couldn't think of a better analogy, you know, I'm just thinking. But that's the kind of thing it is. It's those terms and conditions, because they're written by a legal fiction, they can only apply to another legal fiction. So it's irrelevant if I, you know, click an agree button to that. It's irrelevant because that only applies to another legal fiction. Men cannot be bound. That's a video that I've done in the past. Men cannot be bound by terms and conditions. This is why the root of the birth certificate has a bond on it, okay? Because it's linked back to probably the original trading setup of having to have that trader bonded, you know, like with an escrow account type thing that guaranteed all his trades that he did. Okay, so if he did something wrong or walked out or died or something, all his debts would be settled within the system, you know. That's what that bond's for. That's what that big load of money that's in an account somewhere that you never see, that you didn't have anything to do with putting there either, as the accept it for value people will, you know, go on about. That's nothing to do with you, you know, but it's there, and it's there for a reason, and it's because a man cannot be bound. The only thing that binds a man is natural law, is where value came to him and where value leaves, where he sends value. That must always be balanced, okay? I can't just walk out on an agreement I have with another man and take the value with me. That value has to be repaid if I decide I'm not going to do what I want to do anymore. So, I don't really want to get too much into that, but it will actually become a little relevant here in a minute as well. So, where did I get to? God. So, we've got YouTube making this agreement with the man, and so what I see is the common agreement. And the problem is, you're saying, well, Dan, this is all taking place on the internet. It's all fictional anyway, you know. So does it even exist? Well, there is a consciousness behind the fiction of YouTube. You know, it's their choice to wear that veil of the dead entity, right? And the dead entity can't do anything by itself. So when that thing enters into an agreement with a man, it can't get out of the agreement. Not without the man saying, okay, I've had enough, I'm closing my account. It's stuck. It can't get out of that agreement because it can't do anything by itself. It's got to have somebody else input that idea into it. And so, you know, this is another reason why we have a fictional system, is that it locks that fiction into doing something. So if you want to have a contract now, you can have two fictions that enter into a contract, and they're both locked in. They can't back out of it because they can't do anything. You know, they're locked into the terms and conditions of the contract, whereas a man can walk away at any minute. Well, if I enter into a contract with a fiction, an agreement with a fiction, the consciousness that's behind that's allowed that to happen. But that fiction cannot now change because it is a fiction. It's got to get permission from the other entity, as it would do in a normal, fiction to fiction interaction contract. It would have to get the other party to agree to new terms and conditions before it could do anything. And so before YouTube could exit, because it's not a man now, it can't just walk away. It's got to get permission, because it's a fiction. It's got to get permission from the other party, which happens to be a man. So in order for YouTube to give up on an account that is with a man, they've got to get permission from the man. In fact, the man's just got to close his account is how that's got to happen. He's got to say, I'm not doing it anymore. I've just shut my account and I'm done with YouTube. That's the only way they can get out of it. This may be why they've got this. I'm just wondering if they've got a. I don't know. I'm not going to get into it because I don't know enough about it. So, but that's the problem that they've got right now, is they are now stuck. They are now stuck in the in this agreement. They can't get out of it. Okay, and the problem is there were no terms and conditions that applied to a man, because a man can't be, as I said, a man can't be bound. If you're going to bind a man, you've got to say, well, I think you're going to break those rules. Pay me up front, and that's it. That's how it works. So you have to bond the man or have an upfront payment so that he doesn't break those rules, right? But that doesn't happen with YouTube. There's none of that going on, and the man could still walk away. He would just lose his payment, his upfront, like a deposit almost, like a deposit that you're going to do the right thing. Like it just in normal, like you'd buy something, like a big ticket item, like a car or something from another guy. You say, well, I'll leave you a deposit because that shows that you're going to carry out your word, right? You lose the deposit if you decide, well, I ain't going to buy it now, well, that guy's been put out, he's not been able to sell the vehicle, and so he retains the deposit. That's what happens in the man-to-man world. So, to recap, YouTube has dealt directly with the man. Terms and conditions that are on YouTube's, fill out the form thing, to get going, doesn't apply to a man. That's all legal mumbo jumbo, irrelevant if the man clicks agree, because the rules don't apply to a man. So, next problem, YouTube cannot get out of this account agreement because YouTube can't do any, fiction to fiction, both fictions have got to agree to change the rules of the contract, which is, the rules of the contract is, unfortunately, again, the man now gets to decide, because what happened is, when you filled all the fictional paperwork out online, where did that transaction take place? They would like to say it took place nowhere, somewhere in fiction land, because a fiction doesn't actually have a jurisdiction. A fiction doesn't have an office somewhere. If I'd gone to their office, it would have been a little bit better, but they will probably try to claim, well, it happened at our servers or wherever. No, because there's only one physical entity in this. There's only one physical entity that takes place that is in this agreement, and it's the man. It's me sat here in my own home. So the interaction has to take place where I'm at. I can't just turn into a ghost and float off into fiction land. So this is where the interaction takes place with me in my jurisdiction, in my domain. Ergo, my rules apply. So my common understanding of the agreement that I have is I make a video, I spend my time, my value in making that video, I upload it to YouTube, and in return YouTube play that video in perpetuity fairly with everybody else's videos that they take, and shouldn't be deleting comments or holding me accountable for any kind of legal infringement, because I'm not a legal entity. I am a man. They've decided to deal with the man. So copyright law, that only applies to legal fictions. Trademark infringement, that only, anything, patent, all those ideas of like protecting an idea, those things only apply to other legal fictions. There is none of that for man. When you put an idea out into the world, it's gone, right? You don't have a right to that idea. Where did you even get the idea from in the first place? Well, you had to, I'm doing copyright here. You had to use a musical instrument that was invented and created by somebody else. Then you had to use all these other systems that created and invented by somebody else. And then you were probably using certain sounds and certain themes, and all those ideas that go into like creating a song come from the world around us. All you're doing is taking some bits from the world, rearranging them, and then claiming that that is a unique, or I don't know the correct word for this as well, a completely novel idea. Well, it can't be, or a completely original idea. It can't be completely original, because you didn't invent all the stuff, all the language, all the instruments, the the technology that went into, and even some of the harmonies and yada yada yada, some of those ideas, all those sounds. You didn't invent any of that stuff. You might have invented maybe one sound, or used something. All you did is you essentially did what the rave scene and a lot of a lot of musical pioneers have done, and they just take it from somewhere else, rearrange it, sample it, and then release it again. Yet for some reason we think that's an idea that can be copyrighted. I mean, I shouldn't even be getting into that right now, but copyright only applies to other fictional entities. It's a man-made idea, and it only works in the legal system. And man is not in the legal system. Only the fictional person is in the legal system. So you've got a problem. You've decided not to have a chain of title, a chain of evidence, linking this, my account and quite a few other accounts back to the legal system. There is no link. The agreement's taken place, has to take place with the physical man, because that's the only thing that exists in the transaction. So now you'll say, well, they can just walk out, YouTube could just walk out of that agreement because it's a fiction. Well, I've already said a fiction can't do anything by itself. A fiction, it needs the other party to agree to any changes in the agreement, and it can't step out. If the man says no, it can't leave. The man behind it decided, because the man decided to use the veil of the legal system, he's not acting as a man, right? So he doesn't get that right anymore to say, oh, I don't want you on my YouTube now. I'm taking away your channel. He doesn't have that right to do that, because we're not dealing with another man. We're dealing with a fiction. So why can't the fiction just stop anyway? Well, that's a good question. Why can't the fiction just say, okay, I've had enough. Bloody hell, I stumped myself there. I've got the answer in the back of my head somewhere, I'm sure, to that. I mean, it could just say, that's it, I'm not doing it no more. You know, YouTube could say, that's it, I'm closing your account, you're not going to have an account no more, I'm not doing it, you know, this agreement with you anymore. It could do it. But, and the big but is, and this goes for all the videos that it takes down, you know, under copyright or whatever, or insists that the man takes down, you know, i.e. with the threat of, because the threat of taking away the man's value, saying, hey, 3 strikes and we're taking your videos, you know, your account away. There's a threat there that they're going to take your value from you. Okay, that's the threat. Okay, now they will say that value still exists. You made the video, and the video itself still exists, but the value is the fact that I spent time to make it specifically for YouTube, to put on a YouTube channel. I didn't make these are not videos that I just make and then they just sit on my computer and then I decide to put on YouTube. These are videos that are specifically made to go onto that platform, right? And so if YouTube said, you know, we are going to shut your account down and take all that value off of YouTube because you violated copyright law, which doesn't apply to me, now I'm like, you know, they're going to take my value from me, you know, this value that I've worked for, the account that I've worked to put and I've put energy into, they're going to take that for something that I'm not subject to. And so the problem is, now I am being coerced into removing a video. So this is a strike on this video, you can have 3 strikes and we're going to remove it. And so the problem that I've got is that that value will be lost if they take it down, right? So I'm now being coerced into myself removing a video and taking it off being played. Right, okay. So let's get on to, if they just shut the whole thing down, or if they take a video, what is owed back to the man? Well, they do have the right. They don't really have the right to do that, right? But they can do it because, of course, I'm a man, and if I have an agreement with another man, I would say, well, if they want to walk out of an agreement, that's fine. Just repay the value. You know, that's what a man says. You know, okay, just repay the value. So now we get into the value of the videos. So I make, like, this is going to be like 30 something minutes long. A video like this, you know, I've got the filming of it, then I got to sit and just do a quick bit of editing on it, which takes another 30 to 40, you know, takes almost twice as long, and then I got to save it. Even just to put a title on and just do a few things like that, it takes forever, especially when you're working with Windows junk. So, and the computer that's like, I don't know how many years old now, 15 years old. But so I got, you know, I've already got hours and hours just in a crappy video like what I'm doing. Now that's when you see people that are putting out quality content, right? They've got hours and hours and hours in that thing, right? And the common agreement, the agreement that I saw when I entered into the agreement, and you see, this is the other thing. YouTube can't argue with what I saw when I went into this agreement because they don't have a bloody mind. Okay, so, you know, like 2 men would have a meeting of the minds. You know, they would have an agreement. You know, they would see fair value, what they thought was fair value, and they would agree upon something. Well, when I entered into the agreement with YouTube, I saw something, but YouTube couldn't do anything because it's a dead fiction. So of course, when I saw that, I would put my hard work and value into making videos, which would then get played fairly on YouTube, and I would not be subject to legal BS. That was my intent when I went into the agreement. You see, now they can't argue anything back with me because, again, they're dead. So, I know this is a long video. So, if YouTube took a video down, or insists that I take a video down, or take somebody's channel away from them, they have got to repay that value that was put into that thing. As a man, I understand that if the other side of an agreement decides, whatever it is, decides to walk away from it, but that value's got to come back to me. And because my videos are specifically made for YouTube, I got to have that value back from YouTube, from that original agreement. So now we get into the value thing. Now, man to man, the only thing that we have that's equal is time. Yeah, we all experience time the same, right? I know we don't all have the same amount of time on the earth, but we all experience the minute to minute exactly the same as everybody else. It's a fair trade of worth. Your time is worth my time. So I say my time is worth whatever YouTube's time is worth. Okay, so if I spent 10 hours on a video, let's say 5, right? Let's say I spent 5 hours on a video. An hour-long video actually probably takes me about 5 hours to put out, in terms of waiting by the computer to get it downloaded and all the rest of the nonsense that goes along with it. It takes a long time to do just a crappy 1-hour video. I say, well, okay, pay me back my value. Pay me back my 5 hours of time. Your time is worth my time, and vice versa. So, what does YouTube earn an hour? God knows what they earn an hour. They probably earn hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour. I have no idea, but I expect is it in the millions? I don't know, but it's definitely probably in the hundreds of thousands an hour. So I'll take that, thanks. I'll take, whatever you earn, whatever YouTube earns an hour, I'll take that money, thanks. That currency, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. I'll take that value back, thank you. And it's as simple as that. That's it in a nutshell. Basically, that's how they are violating natural law, and that is the answer to that. So the other answer to it is any videos that they've taken down that's on an individual's account. Those individuals, those number one, they need to stop pulling copyright nonsense on people that or have an individual account. That needs to stop immediately. Okay. That needs to stop immediately. Now, what will probably happen is if they were to listen to this and to say, oh, this guy's got a point, I would expect to see some kind of little pop-up nonsense thing that says, well, are you illegal, this, that, or the other? Or what is your legal standing with, just something to trap the guy into saying, to identify him with the legal thing. The problem is, they cannot do that, not without getting some kind of actual legal paperwork. That's what they need. They need legal paperwork that is now into their jurisdiction, which they can work with. That idea comes into their jurisdiction, and then they can identify that man as a fictional person. The problem is the account's already been set up as the man's account. And you see, the problem there is anybody that set an account up as a man's account and then maybe monetized or started doing some kind of businessy thing, the problem is that account's already owned by the man. That account already belongs to the man. It's irrelevant what avenues the man sends any income from that agreement that they have with YouTube. it's irrelevant what they do with that revenue that comes from whatever videos they put up. If they've already established the account as a man, it's irrelevant because it's already been established as a, the account's already been established under the man. Oh, so YouTube have really done themselves a one in the rear, really. And I bet it all comes down to this idea. It all comes back down to greed again. I'm sure of it. I'm sure they thought, well, nobody's ever going to open a YouTube account, unless we just let them, unless we just bypass, we sort of fluff over the legal stuff, And, well, what's funny is I saw a comment not that long ago, and it said something. It was somebody was commenting about YouTube and videos being taken down and stuff, and the guy said something like, "Oh, YouTube's a common resource and shouldn't be, YouTube shouldn't be allowed to do that, or they're not allowed to do it, something like that, because it's a common resource." And I thought, you're off your rocker, mate. It's a legal fiction. It's not common at all. But it's interesting because it's almost like it is now. It's not completely common, but there are I would say a large amount of users out there that are, those accounts would be deemed with the common man, and not a legal fiction. So where we're at is, in fact, it is semi common now, at least in the eyes of the rules of nature, in the eyes of natural law. So it's very strange. It's almost like, with all this rebirth stuff and the changing of consciousness, it's almost like that seed to be able to control a fiction from a common standpoint. It's almost like it's been put there for this awakening, for the great awakening that we're going through right now. It's just very, very weird. It's almost like consciousness meant that to happen. Now, if you can follow what I've just talked about, well done. I haven't really got anything to add to that. I don't think it's worth doing a recap. I think I recapped about 50 times during that video, trying to figure out where I got to, because there's quite a lot of stuff to get through there and quite a lot of ideas. But basically, the people behind YouTube kind of gave away their rights by acting as a fiction, right? Because acting as a fiction protects the people that sit behind the thing when it's all done through the legal system. But the problem is, once you decide that you're going to act as a fictional entity but then jump into man's realm, now you've got an issue, because there are no men. We're not dealing with a man now. We're dealing with a fiction. And again, a fiction can't change. Terms and conditions that they want to apply don't apply to a man. So man sets up an account. They allow that thing to carry on. What they should have done, what they should have had, is some kind of failsafe that said, no, you cannot set up an account. What they should have done is got the legal bits of paperwork that they needed, but they didn't do that. And I'm not quite sure why they didn't do that. Well, I've got an idea that it was about getting YouTube to a huge crowd and getting everybody on board with it. So they just shortcut the proper avenue. And right now, what's going to happen is, as people start waking up, people see videos like this, and they're going to say, well, hang on a minute, you never had that. The value here that's gone awry, they've kind of shot themselves in the foot, karmically. That cosmic balance is all over the place right now with YouTube. And it's the people behind the scenes that will pay. They will pay some way. Don't ask me. God works in mysterious ways, but that balance will be repaid. And right now they can't get out of the deal either. Not without the man saying, not without the man closing the account. Basically, that's the only way it works. So that's it. That's, any videos that have been taken down to do with copyright violations, any of that stuff has to be rectified. Accounts have to be immediately reinstated if you've taken one down for copyright. Videos that have been taken down for copyright need to be reinstated immediately. If you are dealing with an individual account that doesn't have any traceability, and I'm not talking post setting up the account, I'm talking you've got to be setting up that account with a legal fiction if you want to be taking videos down. And I know that's not what they've done. So you're on notice, YouTube. And people will look at this video and they say, you're nuts, Dan. It ain't going to matter what you say. Well, it does matter what you say. It matters a lot in life. If you just roll over and take it, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get shafted every time. Okay, I might still get shafted, but at least at least I've said it. As for the rest of the people that keep stum, well, carry on taking it. That's all I got to say about it. I know there'll be a load of people that'll see this and be like, "Oh, that guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and it won't make no difference anyway." Well, what's the point if nothing makes a difference? What's the point of anything? Of course it'll make a difference. But if you believe it won't make a difference, then anyway. I hope you enjoyed. Questions below, I guess. Oh, another thing. Just while I'm on the topic of this, it seems like comments are disappearing left, right, and centre, and it even appears the other day I happened to notice that even my thumbs ups now are disappearing, and I happened to leave a comment on another video about the Hoover Dam. Another truther guy, they were at the Hoover Dam looking around. I left a comment, and that it just all disappeared. Not, I mean, the guy got back to me and asked me, what do you mean? And then I commented back, and the whole lot disappeared. Very weird. Very weird. So, anyway, stuff is disappearing. There's definitely something weird going on behind the scenes. Let's leave it at that. All right, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers. All right, bye.